Hi, this is David, and I'm going to suggest a new missionary program for the Mormon Church. There's a lot of talk around Salt Lake right now that they're going to start telling more of the truth about their history and their philosophies, doctrine, policies. And so when the missionaries go out now, back in the old days, God, when I was young, they had like 6 lessons they had to memorize. And they were like a sales presentation. And nowadays, I've heard that it's more kind of winging it by the Spirit. But anyway, I'm gonna do a little presentation for you. And I want the missionaries, and I certainly want the Mormon Church to have this video over at the MTC in BYU so that the missionaries can kind of get an idea how the church is going to come clean on its history. So, okay, let's fantasize here, and I've just knocked on your door, and I have a little people companion, but you know, we don't discriminate, and we let everybody come into church. And so he's very short, and so we knock on the door, and this man and this lady at their own private home open the door, and it's my turn at the door, and I say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Jesus has sent us here to tell you about the only true church on the face of the earth. May we come in and discuss this with you? And they're certainly willing to. So we go in, and they're sitting on one side of the couch, and me and my midget friend, no, I should have said midget, little person. He's sitting on my lap, okay? Because he can't see the books that we might use, but we don't use anymore. So anyway, the midget... I can be politically incorrect. I'm 64. We didn't hear about little people. He looked like some midget to me. So in his very high voice, like from Dorothy not being in Kansas, he says, we have some historical information for you about our church, and Brother David here is going to tell you, and if you have any questions, even if they're little questions, you can ask them, and we'll do the best we can to answer your questions. So, Mr. David, could you take over? And I say yes, and I bounce him on my knees. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we want to tell you the history of our church, and we want you to know that we have a testimony that this work is true, that the things we're about to tell you have been revealed to us through a burning in our bosom by Jesus, that they're true. Okay, so let me start out with the very beginning. There's this boy, and he's 12, 13 years old, and he doesn't know which church to join, but he's really into churches, like most 12 and 13-year-olds. But anyway, he was special. So he was reading in the Bible, which a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds do. Now, my children are on iPods and computers and other kinds of electronic equipment, but in these days, he read the Bible. And the Bible said to him, hey, Joseph. Now, his name was Joseph Smith, so you guys may be related to him, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I know that that's not a unusual name. It's fairly common. But anyway, Joseph went into the forest, and he began to pray. And when he began to pray, Satan captured him, and he couldn't talk, so he couldn't pray anymore. So he then saw a light over his head, and lo and behold, he's telling the whole world that Jesus and his father, Elohim, appeared, and they didn't stand on the forest floor. They were floating. And so when he said to them, well, which church should I join? Which I don't know would be the first question I'd ask, but you know, Joseph was a very spiritual man. So these two gods said to him, don't join any of them. They're all an abomination in my sight. And yes, Mr. Smith, yes. Okay, you're a Catholic. Does that mean your church is an abomination? Yes, it does. We are instructed now to tell the truth. So I know that may upset you just a little bit, but let me finish, because the story does get more believable. And so these gods told him that you know, he was to start his own church. Well, couple of years later, an angel appeared to Joseph Smith, and his name was not Moroni. I know a lot of people call him Moroni, but his name was Moroni. I don't know what his middle or his last name is, and I don't know if he had wings. We're trying to tell you the truth here, but he had on a robe that Joseph could look in and see that he didn't have any other clothes on. I don't know why Joseph brought that point up, but hey, he's a special man, okay? So Moroni says to this little boy, now he's probably, I forget, 14 or 15, and he says, I have some gold plates that have history of the people that written on them from the Americas, not the Bible, the old country, but the new country. And Joseph said, hey, I like gold. Now we're going to tell the truth here, okay? Joseph never had a job in his life, not at 12, 13, or 30. He never had a job. Now, what he did for a living before and after he married Emma Smith, and her father was not very happy with this marriage, is he was a magician, and he was a con man, and he had magic rocks. No, Mr. Smith, not in his head. No, they were outside, and he looked into a rock, and he could see the future. Well, yeah, like a crystal ball, you're right. And so he found rubies and diamonds and treasure in the earth. No. It wasn't a successful business. He didn't have a pot to piss in. He never found a thing. But he's a special guy, Mr. Smith. Give me a chance here to help you build your testimony. So the angel, long story short, gives the plates to young Joseph Smith. Now, because Joseph was a treasure hunter, he wasn't interested in melting down the plates and selling them. It was probably, $500,000 or $1 million worth of gold. But he was spiritual. He wanted to take the information that were on the plates. Well, the language, we're going to tell the truth. We're telling the truth. The language that was on the plates is Reformed Egyptian. I didn't know that you had a PhD in Egyptology. You never heard of Reformed Egyptian? Well, neither have we, but Joseph said it was in Reformed Egyptian. So anyway, let me finish, because this will build your testimony. So he began to translate the Reformed Egyptian into the Book of Mormon. Now, how he did this was magic, okay? And God's ways are not our ways, okay? He took his magic stone, his seer stone, that never found anything worth value, and he put it in a top hat. And then he looked down at it like this, and he began to mumble and jumble and dictate the Book of Mormon. And one of his friends, Oliver Cowdery, wrote it down. Well, a long story short, people began to join, and they knew through their testimony that Joseph was a true prophet, just like we do. We're out here representing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we know Joseph was a true prophet. Now, you're going to hear some things about Kirtland, Ohio, and we want to be totally honest in this. The Mormons, we built a temple in Kirtland, Ohio, and Joseph decided to print it was monopoly money, and he gave the money to the people who had real money, and they gave him back real money. Well, that was a good deal. Well, Joseph was, I wouldn't say it was dishonest. Would you, midget, Andre? No, see, he doesn't think it's dishonest either. But anyway, when Joseph went to spend the money on himself, it pissed the people off. So he had to jump on a horse and ride out of town. And there are some rumors, but again, we want to tell the whole truth, that Joseph was into polygamy. Well, that word means it means that you can have more than one wife. And now, Mrs. Smith, sit down. We're telling the truth. Don't throw that. Watch out for my midget friend. Don't kick him. Let me just, as I tell more of the story, you'll start to believe more and more. I guarantee it, because we did. So anyway, he hightailed it out of Kirtland, and he went out to Missouri. And the truth is, he pulled a few more shenanigans there, and he was in Liberty Jail in Missouri, and he had been arrested in New York for treasure hunting, and they expelled him from the county and the city. But these are things of God. Well, it does sound like he was a con man and a criminal. I know. But we're going to tell you the truth so that when we baptize you, you'll have that burning... Well, you may not want to be baptized. I don't know. But you got to listen to the story because we got you trapped in your own home. So then he goes to Nauvoo, Illinois. He was driven out of Missouri and his people. And he built a city there in Nauvoo. Well, a couple of the people that knew Joseph really well in the church began to say, you know, he's not really a prophet. He's just kind of a con man. And they bought a newspaper, and they were going to print that information to the whole city of Nauvoo. And Joseph was the mayor, and he held a midnight meeting. I know, there's not... Well, you hold midnight meetings. If you're going to do something illegal, you don't do it in daylight. So anyway, don't focus on the midnight meeting. Focus on, he declared the Nauvoo Expositor newspaper a public nuisance. Well, he ordered the city council, which was the 12 apostles, down to burn it and to tear out all the press and throw everything in the street and burn it. Well, the governor of the state, he didn't think much of that, and Joseph knew he was in deep shit. And so he had his regular horse that he rode out of Kirtland and out of Missouri, and it was, harnessed and saddled and always ready to go because no one ever knew when he was going to pull some kind of a shenanigan. Well, before he rode out of town, basically, the people began to realize he had 30 wives. Mrs. Smith, this is spiritual. We are telling you the truth of the Mormon church. All right, 30 wives, hey. Well, there were two of them that we're going to tell the truth. Nancy Winchester and Helen Mar Kimball, they were 14. Well, oh my God, you kicked the midget. He bounced across the room. Now, they didn't teach us that in the language training, that you may kick people. Let me get him back on my lap and protect him a little bit here. So, yeah, he had 30 wives, and 2 or 3, 2 were 14-year-olds, and he had a couple of 16. All right, I understand, Mrs. Smith, how you feel about the truth. And we do too, but we have a burning testimony. I know that, see, and the midget says he knows that Joseph Smith was a true prophet with 30 wives. Well, one of the little gals, Fanny Auger, moved in with Emma and Joseph, and Emma found them in bed together, and Fanny was right at about 14 or 15. Okay, I understand, Mrs. Smith. That is called, a pedophile. And Emma thought he was being a pedophile too, so she beat up on Miss Auger and ran her out of the house with a broom. Well, Joseph continued to marry. No, they weren't all single women. now we want to tell. I know, but we want to tell the truth. He married half of his 30 wives were already married. Well, some people call it an adultery, but in the Mormon church, we spin it a different way. He was a prophet, and he was trying to multiply and replenish the earth. Yeah. All right. Now, don't kick the midget anymore, please. Don't kick the midget. And Mr. Smith, let go of your heart. This is not going to cause you a heart attack. All right. So, again, a long story short, he married all these girls, and he had Bennett, Brother Bennett, who was an abortionist, follow him around, and so there's no posterity. But there's plenty of abortion. Okay, so he jumps on his favorite horse, and you don't have to use the reins with this horse. It is run out of every town east of the Missouri and Mississippi River. The horse knew where to go. Joseph just held on for his damn life. Well, the horse goes to Carthage jail, and Joseph gets out, and his brother and a few other authorities in the church met him there, and they all went up in the top of Carthage jail there, and Joseph snuck in a gun, and Hiram had a gun, his brother. And when a mob came to kill Joseph, Joseph opened the door, and he shot and killed 2 people. And seriously wounded another, and Hiram never got a shot off. They hit Hiram in the face right away, and he went down. And then Joseph ran over to the window, and because he was a Mason, he decided to scream, the Mason, is there no help for a poor widow's son? And there wasn't. They shot his ass, and he went out and fell down by the well. Now, we want to tell you the truth. That's the foundation of our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, we need to tell you, because the internet is spreading some lies about us, and we're losing members hand over fist, and we want to have new tithe payers. Now, I'll tell you what tithing is. Okay, well, no, it's not optional. It's required. Mr. Smith, let go of I know you're on retirement, but if you give to the Mormons, God will multiply how much money you actually have to spend. Okay, that doesn't make sense, but we're required to tell you that. Okay, so Joseph Smith in Nauvoo joined the Masons. And as you know, the Masons are a secret society, and they have rites, rituals, and things that they do. Well, 2 weeks after Joseph became the Grand Wizard in Nauvoo, which seldom ever happened to anybody without being in the Masons for years and years, but he was special. So he went into his house upstairs. It was called the Mansion House. I've been in it. It's far from a mansion. It's a great big wood barn with a second story. And so he began to invent the Mormon temple rituals. I know, you've heard about those. Okay, magic underwear, we don't call it magic. We call it sacred. Yes, you're right. It is magic. So he began to endow people there and train them for going and living with God. Well, then he built the Nauvoo Temple, and it only got off the ground. I think there were just a few people baptized, and it got about halfway off the ground. And then lightning struck it, and it burned to the ground. But he was special, and Jesus wanted to test him. Okay, now, testing, that's right. Where are the gold plates? Well, you know, I think that's a good question. Midget missionary, you want to take that one? Yes, I'll take it. Okay, his voice is a little high, so I'm going to just kind of jump in here. The angel Moroni, he took the angel plates back into heaven. I don't know why he did that. Yes, it would be easier to believe Joseph Smith if those plates were around. And yes, they took him into heaven so that we would be tested to believe that there really were plates. Okay, honey, I don't know when pigs fly, okay? Let me tell you the rest of the history of this magnificent organization. Okay, so Joseph is killed in Nauvoo, and then Brigham Young, yeah, you've heard of Brigham Young. 57 wives. Okay, that's almost 100 between them. 87. You're right. There's a lot of... Mrs. Smith, I don't think we have to say sexual activity, okay? I think that there's a spiritual portion, and you don't think so. Well, you're probably not alone. But anyway, we have a burning, and I know Joseph Smith and Brigham Young were prophets of the Lord. Well, Brigham Young takes everybody to Salt Lake Valley, and he starts setting up Utah. And they were continuing polygamy, and they were building the Salt Lake Temple and St. George and Logan. And they were marrying all of these women to these men. And Brigham, you're right, Brigham married 57 of them. And some were in the Beehive House, some were in the Lion House, and he had a favorite wife, Kitty Corner, to the Beehive House, that he built a mansion for. Well, I can't say if she really put out. I don't know why she was his favorite. I think we're getting kind of off the subject here, that I know Brigham Young was a prophet. And you say, did he have time to be a prophet? Again, Mrs. Smith, I'm not sure you're really being spiritual here. Maybe we should all kneel down and pray until we're so sore that you're going to agree with me. However, Brigham Young had some very unusual doctrine for the Mormons, and one of them was that no one was to marry a black person. If you married a black person, they were cursed. They were of the tribe of Cain, and you would cut the head off the black person and the white person and any children that they had. What would Jesus do, Mr. Smith? Well, I don't know what Jesus would do, but I know that Brigham Young was inspired by the Lord, and I know Brigham Young was a prophet. I have a testimony, and I know the Book of Mormon is true. You don't. Okay, well, let me finish, because some of these details, one or two of them may hit you as very, very positive, and you may want to get baptized. All right. Pigs don't fly. I understand what you're saying. Let me finish here, okay? So, Brigham then decided that women were always second-class citizens, and they were to be pregnant and be subjected to their men. Mrs. Smith, oh, shit. She kicked the midget again. You can't keep kicking my midget companion. He has every right as a big person. Get him from across the room and put him back in my lap. And don't slap him anymore. All right, don't take this out on us. We're just the messengers of this organization. So as they got more and more profits, the ERA, I know you're old enough to remember that, for Equal Rights Amendment for women, the church would not let women work, and the man was the breadwinner, and the woman was subjective to him. And so the church hated the ERA, and they did everything they could not see it wouldn't pass, but it passed. And their polygamy got stopped by Johnson's army. The federal government sent in a federal army to stop that crap, and they lied 2 or 3 times. Wilford Woodruff said they stopped, and then he got married a couple more times in the Salt Lake Temple. And then John Taylor, he had to make a second manifesto and say, well, yeah, we were lying in the first one, but we're not lying in the second one. So anyway, the Mormons hated the women and the ERA, and also they hated black people. And black people could get baptized in the Mormon church, but they couldn't hold the priesthood or go to the temple. And so in 1978, the IRS was chasing the Mormons, and they got a revelation, I guess, from Jesus that said the blacks could now have the priesthood. Well, you have to realize that the Mormon church always has a hate group. A lot of people say that we're a cult, and that's a coincidence. Cults always hate certain people, but as Mormons, we're now taught to hate the gays and the lesbians. And your daughter's a lesbian? Good grief. Okay, well, we're taught to hate that. That's unnatural, and the Bible says, her vagina will probably fall off. You don't think so? Well, I don't know. It's just what we've been taught in the Mission Training Center. Okay, so I have to tell you a little bit about, because the internet is putting some of this stuff out, a little bit about the, you're going to have an opportunity to clean the chapels and the temples and the corporation of the church's property. Yes, Mr. Smith, that could be called a janitor. We don't call it that, a janitor. We call it a special privilege to prove that we believe in Jesus. Okay, you don't have to clean the chapels. You can opt out on this. You will be punished, but you don't have to do it. Okay, so we wanted to let you know about being a janitor. We also want to let you know about the temple rites. Now, this is an important part of what we're bringing to you. You're going to learn in the Mormon temple how to get into heaven, because there's this century at the gate, and he, according to Brigham Young, is going to ask you the secret signs, tokens, and symbols of the priesthood, and if you don't know them, your ass is in hell. Now, is that of an interest to you? Well, it should be. It's an interest to us, so it should be. No, don't send us out of here. Don't kick the midget. Just let me finish, because you may gain a testimony from these things. No, they're not silly. Well, a lot of them aren't silly. So you go into the temple and you dress in some funny clothes and you take some promises, okay? And one of the promises is that you will give everything you have to the Mormon church. I don't think both of you ought to be kicking my midget. This guy is on a mission. A little respect. Give his badge back to him. Give his badge back to him. Okay, you give everything in the law of consecration in the temple, everything to the Mormon church. And you promise that if you don't, they're going to slit your throat and cut your bowels out. Now, in 1990, those punishments were dropped a little bit, and now you just say under the penalty of death. Yes, that's right. The Mormons could kill you if you divulge anything about the temple that you go into. Well, what can I say about this? These things are so sacred. We've been taught that God will kill you if you say anything. So anyway, enough of the temple rites. I can see that's going nowhere. Okay, let me move down to other principles here. The plates, like I mentioned to you, they disappeared. Yeah, right. I don't think you need to be saying sarcastic things, okay? Now the other thing about Joseph Smith, and you'll hear this, he never had a job. Yeah, I covered this a little bit in his history, but we just want to be truthful to you that Joseph Smith never had a job, and he lived off the people. Yeah, and their tithing. You're right, Mrs. Smith. Also, I wanted to mention to you, you'll hear a lot about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. Okay, the Mountain Meadows Massacre was under Brigham Young. He was the prophet of the church. And there were some people from Arkansas coming through southern Utah in a wagon train. And he ordered the stake president and a couple of bishops to assassinate those people. So the Mormons went in and told them they could pass freely and safely if they turned their guns in. Well, they turned their guns in. And then the Mormons shot 120 of them, men, women, and children, and killed them. So there's Mrs. Smith. You seem to be a little bit negative. This is a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, they killed 120 women and men and children, but they needed to show the world you're not going to push the Mormons around. No, these people never did push the Mormons around, but they were the most convenient to murder. So let that be. You don't have to focus and spin this all a different way. Okay, so the Mountain Meadows Massacre was ordered by Brigham Young. Now, we want you to know that we've told you now the truth of the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we've told you so that we could convert you. Mr. Smith, you really like that pigs fly statement, don't you? All right. We will leave. And no, we will leave. I don't want my midget companion kicked, slapped, or you pull his pin off of his suit there. It was hard for us to get a little suit. Okay, now maybe you're not interested in the church right now, but give us your name and your number. All right, when pigs fly. We're going to the door now, and we hope that you have heard the truth about the Mormon Church, and you may be very, very interested in getting baptized. So we go out the door, and I look at the midget, and I say, those are evil people. They're non-believers, and I think you did a really good job, midget, of taking that humiliation and punishment for the Lord. Give this tape to the MTC, train the missionaries to tell the truth, and then let's watch, even in third world countries. They're not this stupid. Thanks.